Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stare into the unknown and not know whether to be terrified or to feel compassion? In the quiet town of Miller's Creek, nestled at the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains, Henry Thompson, a 74-year-old widower, found himself facing a mystery that would change everything he thought he knew about fear and courage. The late October wind carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves, twisting around the empty fields of his old farm, and yet there was something else in the air, something heavy and watchful. For 3 days, Henry had seen movement near the old oak stump at the far edge of his property, movement that was too deliberate to be a deer and too strange to be any creature he recognized. It was large, with a twisted gait, dragging one back leg, yet it did not run. It simply stared, as if measuring him and the silence around him.
The townspeople whispered of a 6-foot beast, of livestock mysteriously disappearing, and of a predator that might come close to homes filled with children preparing for Halloween. Henry, who had spent years in the rhythm of farm life, sold his cattle, leased his fields, and let the barn stand as a hollow reminder of times past, now felt the familiar comfort of solitude replaced by a deep tension. As he walked to the corner store, the gravel crunching beneath his rusted truck, he knew he had to seek advice from his old friend Franklin Davis. Yet even he feared the answer, knowing the creature outside his door could be far more dangerous or far more vulnerable than anyone imagined. The story was about to unfold, and Henry could feel that whatever he was about to face would test the boundaries between fear and empathy in ways he had never anticipated.
Have you ever encountered a situation where the line between danger and vulnerability is so thin that it leaves your heart racing and your mind questioning everything you thought you knew? That was exactly the dilemma Henry Thompson faced when Dr. Laura Bennett arrived at his quiet farm in Miller's Creek, responding to frantic calls about a supposed predator lurking near the edge of his property. Laura, a wildlife rehabilitation specialist in her late 30s, with eyes that had witnessed countless struggles of animals and people alike, stepped cautiously from her green SUV, her vest marked clearly with her role, her hands visible to show she meant no harm. Henry, his knees aching as he rose slowly from the porch, explained everything he had observed. The large, tawny creature dragging a back leg, its twisted gait, its unwavering stare. Laura listened intently, her expression shifting between professional concern and personal empathy, knowing that what appeared monstrous might in fact be a creature in desperate need. As they walked the perimeter of the property, the autumn leaves thick underfoot muffled their steps, and each snap of a twig heightened the tension. Henry's heart thudded against his chest as they approached the barn, the structure long silent, shadows stretching across the dusty floor.
Laura shone her high-powered flashlight into the dim corners, her beam revealing mud tracks and a short, wide stride. She muttered to herself, noting patterns that suggested a feline presence, yet nothing confirmed it as the dangerous predator the town feared. The wind whistled through the gaps in the wooden walls, carrying a scent of decay and old hay, mixing with the cold hint of an approaching storm. Henry followed, gripping his walking stick, torn between relief that the creature might not be a threat and fear of what they might find in the next shadow.
Finally, they reached the last stall, once used for prized horses, now a cavernous space full of echoes. A low, guttural sound emerged from the shadows, vibrating through the air with a raw intensity that made Henry hesitate. Laura kept her voice soft, urging him to stay calm, explaining that defensive sounds often come from fear rather than aggression. As the flashlight beam swept across the stall, the creature slowly came into view. Its body was swollen and misshapen, fur patchy with raw pink skin exposed to the cold air. One ear was tattered, and the face bore scars that told a story of survival in harsh conditions. Henry's chest tightened at the sight. This was no predator seeking prey, but an animal pushed to the edge by sickness and circumstance. Laura crouched closer, carefully assessing the creature's condition, noting signs of severe mange and a pregnancy that added to the physical strain. She whispered to Henry that this bobcat, whom he had started to see as a monster, was in fact a mother, struggling to survive and in desperate need of help.
Henry felt a mixture of awe and sorrow as the realization settled in. The fear that had gripped him for days melted into empathy, replaced by a profound desire to protect this vulnerable life. He listened as Laura explained how the disease weakened the immune system, making hunting impossible, and how any aggressive act from the animal would stem only from pain and self-preservation. Every detail she shared painted a clearer picture of suffering and resilience, turning what was once a terrifying unknown into a narrative of endurance and courage. The autumn storm began to rise outside, lashing rain against the tin roof, and yet within the barn, a fragile circle of warmth, light, and intent was forming. Henry and Laura were no longer confronting a monster, they were witnessing a mother in peril, and the responsibility of care fell squarely on their shoulders.
As the minutes stretched, Henry found himself moving with purpose, gathering old towels and blankets, arranging spaces to provide warmth and comfort. Laura prepared her tools with meticulous care, explaining each step so that Henry could assist safely, bridging the gap between human experience and the instinctual drive of the bobcat. The storm outside amplified the tension, but inside, the barn became a sanctuary of focused attention and compassion. Each interaction was deliberate, from the gentle placement of food and water to the careful observation of fetal movements using a portable Doppler. Henry could feel a connection growing between him, Laura, and the suffering mother, a silent understanding that the outcome depended on their patience, dedication, and the willingness to trust a creature that had been so misjudged. With each passing hour, the initial suspense of the unknown transformed into a deeper, more compelling narrative. It was no longer a story of fear, but one of hope and human empathy confronting the harsh realities of life in the wild. Henry's perspective shifted entirely. The whispered rumors of a dangerous beast were replaced by the recognition of vulnerability and resilience. In this moment, Miller's Creek was not just a town watching from a distance. It was a stage for the unfolding drama of survival, care, and the fragile beauty of life that often hides behind appearances. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to step into the delicate balance between life and suffering and realize that every choice you make can tip the scales? For Henry Thompson, that moment arrived as he and Dr. Laura Bennett began the delicate task of caring for the bobcat, now gently named Willow, in the shadowed barn of his old farm. The animal, weakened by mange and the strain of pregnancy, had never known the comfort of warmth or the steady hand of a human willing to help, and every movement required patience and careful observation. Henry moved with deliberate care, gathering soft towels and blankets from the linen closet, each item a small act of hope, while Laura prepared a mild sedative to calm Willow without causing harm, explaining each step to Henry so he could assist safely. The storm outside rattled the tin roof and the wind pushed through gaps in the barn walls. Yet inside, the barn became a controlled sanctuary, a pocket of warmth and light where life hung in a fragile balance. Laura guided Henry in arranging the hay and blankets to create a comfortable space, placing food and water close enough for Willow to reach, but without startling her. She monitored fetal heartbeats with a portable Doppler, the rhythmic whoosh whoosh, whoosh, echoing through the quiet barn, signaling life persisting against adversity. Henry watched intently, heart pounding, as he realized the complexity of the task before them. This was not just a rescue, but a test of endurance and compassion. He whispered soft words to Willow, sensing that even animals could feel intent, that their calm and care mattered. Every step required communication without words, patience without complaint, and respect for a wild creature whose entire world had shifted in moments. As hours passed, Henry and Laura adjusted blankets to retain heat, mixed high-protein wet food, and ensured water was clean and accessible, all while Willow remained tense, wary, and exhausted. The sedative had dulled her fear, but not her awareness, and each gentle movement by Henry elicited careful observation from the Bobcat. Despite the strain of the storm outside, the barn became a small bastion of safety, a place where the natural instincts of survival met human empathy. The tactile reality of the work, the rustle of hay, the soft clinking of dishes, the careful adjustment of towels, brought Henry into a rhythm he had not felt since his wife Evelyn had passed, a sense of purpose that was both grounding and emotional. Through the night, Henry learned to read Willow's subtle cues, noticing shifts in weight, the tension in her muscles, and the faint sounds of distress. Laura coached him through each moment, explaining why certain reactions were natural and how to respond without exacerbating stress. Henry felt a profound connection growing not only to Willow, but also to the resilience of life itself, marveling at the courage of a mother fighting to bring her young into the world under impossible circumstances. The isolation of the farm, once a symbol of solitude, became a crucible where compassion, knowledge, and patience merged to create a sanctuary for life on the edge. By the early hours, the initial fear and mystery surrounding the creature had transformed entirely into a story of hope, survival, and human-animal connection. Henry felt a warmth spread through him, the realization that the danger he had anticipated was replaced by the extraordinary responsibility of preserving life, a responsibility he met with dedication and humility. The barn, despite the storm outside, had become a refuge, a place where suffering was acknowledged and countered with care, where every measured action could influence the future of both mother and offspring. In this space, Henry and Laura had not only stabilized Willow, they had created a living testament to the power of empathy and the lengths humans will go to protect vulnerable life when fear is replaced by understanding. Have you ever witnessed the raw power of life clinging to hope in the face of overwhelming odds? For Henry Thompson and Dr. Laura Bennett, that moment arrived as Willow, the Bobcat, began the arduous process of giving birth in the dimly lit barn, the storm outside lashing rain and wind against the tin roof. Every contraction was a test, every breath a struggle, and Henry felt his chest tighten with empathy and anxiety. The sedative had worn off, and Willow, despite her deformed legs and weakened body, was fully aware, her instinctive strength pushing her through each painful motion. Henry leaned over the stall, hands trembling, whispering encouragement, a prayer slipping past his lips for the first time in years, a lifeline of calm, reaching out to the mother fighting to bring new life into the world. Dr. Laura Bennett moved with precise care, monitoring fetal heartbeats with the portable Doppler, ensuring that each newborn had a chance to survive. The rhythmic whoosh, whoosh, whoosh from the device became a beacon of hope amidst the tension, signaling that life persisted even under the most harrowing circumstances.
Henry arranged towels and straw, adjusting them to provide warmth, watching Willow respond with subtle movements that indicated trust, or at least recognition of their intent. Every small action mattered, every gentle adjustment could make the difference between life and death, and the storm outside heightened the isolation and intensity of the night. Henry's mind drifted briefly to memories of his wife Evelyn, the steadiness she had brought to his life, and he realized that in caring for Willow, he was reconnecting with a sense of purpose and compassion that had lain dormant since her passing.
As the night wore on, the first kitten arrived. Tiny and wet, fragile in every sense of the word. Dr. Bennett moved quickly to ensure it was breathing, Henry holding the flashlight steadily as light illuminated the new life, casting long shadows across the barn walls. The tension and pain were tangible. Each successive birth tested Willow's endurance and their own resolve. 3 more kittens followed, each arrival accompanied by a mixture of relief, awe, and lingering worry as Willow struggled to sustain her strength. Her breathing was shallow, her body trembling, yet she persisted, driven by maternal instinct and a stubborn will that seemed to defy her physical limitations. Henry found himself caught between admiration and fear, marveling at the determination of a creature many had misjudged as dangerous. Throughout the ordeal, Dr. Bennett administered fluids and glucose carefully, coaxing Willow back from the brink when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. Henry held her attention, his whispered words carrying reassurance and a human presence that Willow had never known. The barn, once a place of silence and dust, now pulsed with the energy of life and the intensity of human care, a sanctuary where compassion and instinct collided in a delicate dance. Henry could see the transformation taking place, the tension in Willow's body slowly easing as she groomed the kittens, the soft, raspy sounds signaling both recovery and acceptance of the support surrounding her. The storm outside began to wane, yet the memory of its intensity underscored the magnitude of their achievement.
By the time dawn approached, Willow had stabilized, each kitten alive and nursing, the barn filled with a fragile but palpable sense of triumph. Henry slumped against the stall gate, exhausted, tears tracing lines through the dust on his cheeks, feeling a lightness in his chest he had not experienced in years. The night had tested endurance, patience, and empathy, and the reward was not only the survival of 4 tiny lives, but a rekindling of purpose and hope within Henry himself. He realized that fear had been replaced by understanding, terror by empathy, and that even in the darkest moments, life had a remarkable way of persevering when met with care and unwavering attention.
In that quiet post-storm barn, Henry understood that the story was no longer about a frightening beast, but about resilience, maternal strength, and the profound impact of human compassion. Willow's struggle had become a mirror of his own journey through loss and solitude, and in witnessing her triumph, he discovered that hope and determination could bridge the gap between worlds, between species, and between hearts willing to care.
Have you ever witnessed a fear that transforms into hope in the span of a single night? As dawn broke over Miller's Creek, Henry Thompson stepped onto his porch, the barn behind him now filled with a quiet warmth and life that had not been there before. The storm had passed, leaving the sky bright and clear, and for the first time in years, Henry felt a lightness in his chest, a sense that his small actions had made a meaningful difference. Dr. Laura Bennett stood beside him, exhausted yet smiling, the Bobcat Willow and her 4 kittens safe under their care. The town, still buzzing with rumors of a monster, would soon discover the truth that the fearsome predator had been a vulnerable mother seeking refuge and a place to bring her young into the world.
Henry led the curious neighbors to the barn, carefully instructing them to leave their weapons in their vehicles and to approach quietly. When they peered over the stall, they saw not a beast, but a mother nurturing her kittens, each small, spotted bundle alive and breathing, the sight dissolving tension and replacing it with awe and admiration. Franklin Davis, the sheriff, and Kendi Martin, the store owner, exchanged astonished glances as they realized that the danger they had imagined never existed. What had seemed threatening was in fact a lesson in empathy and understanding. Children would later trick-or-treat past the farm, their laughter echoing in the crisp autumn air, unaware of the quiet heroism that had unfolded just beyond the road.
Henry, watching Willow groom her kittens, understood that sometimes fear is born from misunderstanding and pain, and that compassion can transform the darkest nights into a testament of endurance and hope. He felt the presence of his late wife, Evelyn, in the quiet triumph, knowing that in helping Willow, he had renewed not only her lives, but his own sense of purpose. The lights of Miller's Creek shone a little brighter that morning, reflecting the enduring truth that life, when met with care and courage, always finds a way to endure.